On to item 10.04, which is Legislative and Policy Committee, revision of Policy 1040, Equal Opportunity, former Policy 3-1. Ms. Sheridan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Legislative and Policy Committee met February 5th and voted 2-1 to recommend staff restructured Policy 1040 as amended by the committee to the full school board for consideration. The policy would read, the School Board of Loudoun County affirms a commitment to the principle of equal opportunity for all persons regardless of race, ancestry, color, sex, pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, marital status, age, religion, national origin, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, genetic information, and any other characteristic provided by law. It is the express intent of the School Board of Loudoun County that every policy, practice, and procedure shall conform to all applicable requirements of federal and state law. This policy is being moved out of Section 3000, Administration, to Section 1000, Foundations, and would be considered the foundational policy which would govern the other policies prescribed by law. The committee recommends all student and employee policies under this umbrella policy should be cross-referenced for easy access to related policies for all concerned. With adoption of this policy, LMP would work with the other committees to conform the language in policies 7012, 7014, 86, 86A. I would now ask Dr. Richards to describe the methods used when a policy falls under two committees or collaboration on a policy happens between committees.
Dr. Richards.
Thank you, Ms. Sheridan. So we use a teamwork approach to that. If the policy is going to come to the LMP committee, I, as the liaison to that committee, take the lead, and I bring in the other cabinet members who are the liaisons to the other relevant committees. And so it works the same way if one of my colleagues is going to take on a policy that has several different interests in it or several different departments that that use that policy, that rely on that policy. It's the same thing. They would ask me or ask someone else to come in and work with them. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to open the floor for discussion on the information item. Ms. Rose.
So diving right in. My first couple of comments here are just general in that I want it to be clear that from my perspective, all people, students, teachers, visitors to our schools are all made in the image of God and deserve that the love, respect, and compassion of being so uniquely and amazingly made. That is my personal opinion, and I believe that is what should be everybody's guiding focus when dealing with anybody, regardless of the situation. My concerns for this policy proposal is that it is very much broader than the original proposals considered, or proposal considered a few years ago, which was specific to the employee anti-discrimination policy. This is a broad principle type policy, but in my conference with or call with Mr. DeVita, the school attorney today, he confirmed that in fact it would have the full effect of policy. And by removing the word employment, this does become a unisex bathroom, locker room, and sports team policy. This is an opening of Pandora's box without preparation. And I think that people need to key in on that word too, on that phrase. This was done with a few minutes left of the LNP's meeting. There was only a question or two, I think, asked of Mr. DeVita, and those focused in on what is the current status of litigation as it relates to Title IX and VII. But it did not ask about current research, did not ask about, is our staff prepared to implement such a policy? It did not ask about potential unintended consequences. And that being putting the vast majority of our students in a situation where they are confronted with uncomfortable, at the least, and potentially sexually harassment or assault inside of a bathroom where they are at the most vulnerable. without any thought about those protections, and those are important protections too. It is important to protect those students in their most vulnerable moments as well. So without adequate consideration of how this broad policy works, I can't support this. This is well beyond what we had before. This isn't right now a discussion for me about whether or not you're adding sexual orientation or gender identity to the equal opportunity anti-discrimination policy for employees or students. This is bigger. I don't know that this division is ready for unisex sports teams yet. I want to know what people think of that. I don't know what people think about, and even, I am concerned about what happens inside locker rooms and bathrooms. This would apply to visitors to our buildings. And there aren't any requirements or processes that any one of those people have to go through to ensure that they're not a harmful person to the students that they would be encountering in those what should be very safe spaces. So that could be, any visitor to a play, an adult. And we do a whole lot of research and preparation to ensure our students' safety from intruders, from other, all sorts of other potential harms and risks to their safety. And I think that we deserve it doing that for the vast majority of our students who should feel as if when they are in their gender-specific bathroom, that they too are safe, and they are safe from not just other students, not just, or other adults in the building, from, again, in their what should be a very safe space for them. So I do know, in talking with Mr. DeVita, that even when Fairfax did this, they did engage in a process of a 3-month process where they had a committee that looked at all of these things, these questions that I'm raising. And I do believe that this division deserves to and owes it to our students to at least go through a process where you collect this kind of data, understand how other divisions have done it, understand what higher education institutions are doing, get more data on what of the unintended consequences, or maybe not just unintended, but will happen consequences from some of these the unisex bathroom type of policies. I feel strongly that we have to take a pause and not do this overly broad, particularly without public input, and not just from the few that have come regularly, and not just respond emotionally, but we do need to look at what is the problem we're trying to address and do that well. And I think that the problem that we have heard needs to be addressed is anti-discrimination policy, having protections in our employee anti-discrimination policy that makes LGBTQ employees feel safe in their jobs. I can't speak to their experience. I can speak as a parent. I'm very aware that there are LGBTQ teachers in the buildings that are teaching a host of subject matters, and at no point in my personal experience has that been an issue, or that of my children. This has been a non-issue. It's been a non-issue because it should be. It should be a non-issue. It should just be something that we, in a diverse community, encounter, and we're respectful to everybody, students, teachers, whatever their sexual orientation is. But I do want, when I hear the comments about how teachers here don't feel safe, I want to tell people we don't have a history of complaints to our admin for sexual discrimination based on sexual orientation. In fact, we have a case where an employee was fired for discriminating against another employee for their sexual orientation. So we don't have we don't have the problem. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't put those words in. That's a discussion for here, but to conform to or to add in what some perceive as extra words to make that just dot the I and cross the T. But the experience here is not that we have an overload of cases, or even any, really, cases of people claiming discrimination based on sexual orientation. I also did a lot of research on, if the question is making sure our students feel safe, we also need to be looking at, I guess what I've been reading is it's less about whether or not Title VII is broad enough to cover, I guess actually the sexual orientation part, but it is about having robust and effective anti-bullying policies that make students feel safe in their buildings. And we have those. Now, is it perfect? No. Kids are bullied. Yeah, mine are bullied sometimes too. And that when one bad. It happens, and I don't doubt that it happens with more frequency. I trust those statistics you provide that it does happen with more frequency to students who are LGBTQ. And that is an ongoing effort that we have across the board, that we need to do a better job of bias training for all of our minorities. We need to do that better. And that's all, everybody. So again, it goes back to everybody needs to make sure that we're not bullying anybody based on any of their characteristics. So that's key, and we need to do a good job of that. But again, those are the problems we're trying to solve, but doing this broad policy outside of the other two employee and student policies is confusing, overbroad, and opens up a lot of potential issues that will put a lot of students in a place where they feel unsafe. And for that reason, I can't support this proposal, because this isn't what we considered last time. This is more. And I would hope that the board would look at these concerns, consider them seriously, and I would ask the public to please write in, and write in more than just saying, it's great to say platitudes and say we want equal access and education for all. Yeah, we do, yeah. But this is actually the hard work of doing the analysis and the public policy that drives at the problem we're trying to solve, not just putting in words because it makes us feel good for the moment. We want to make sure that we solve the problem and address the problems that we have, not just slap some words on it that in a haphazard manner that doesn't take into account what could maybe go wrong, and do it in a way that we're not prepared to handle. So for those reasons, I would ask that the board take these concerns into consideration as they consider this.